Good day and welcome to Cost of Materials. So the first thing you should notice is that the same categories that we had on our sales page get transported over here. This is part of that single entry system that we were talking about earlier. These same categories will get transported over into several of the tabs. And if you ever want to make a change, you know that the only place you can make that change is to go back to the sales page on sales tab on year one, and you can change things there. That's the only place that you can make these changes. So the way for you to fill this out is to simply scroll down and you'll see them here. Same things. And you have to enter exactly what it says. Insert the cost of goods for each product. Unless manually changed, this value is carried throughout the 5 years. So I have to find out what does my material costs. This is not labor, this is not rent, this is not expenses, this is not power bills or anything. This is simply my material costs on each and individual product I have. So the first thing you'll notice, for example, grad. Well, grad is they come into the studio, I shoot, and that's it. If they want to buy prints, they can buy prints. So there is no cost of materials for this. Back when photography used to be film and chemistry, I would go through here and say, okay, on the average grad photo, I'm going to shoot about a half a roll of film. So if I'm doing 2 grads, I could get 2 grads on the same roll of film. What does it cost me for the film and processing of that roll of film? That would have been my material costs. Now that we're digital, it's just a file, so there effectively is none. So there would be no material cost for grad, for portrait shooting, for boudoir. This is simply my time. Framing, this is pure cost of goods. Because of the deal that I've worked out with my suppliers, whatever they charge me, I simply mark it up, say 50%, and I turn it around and sell it for that. So if I know that my framing is, I've charged $1, so this is going to be 50 cents. Now my print package number 1, I'd have to go through and say, well, what is my print package number 1? If this is 1 8x10, a bunch of 5x7s, and maybe 10 or 12 3.5x5s, I would have to say, when I go hit shift print on my printer and that comes off, what does that cost me in ink, in paper, and everything else? A lot of the inkjet printers, and they're just using regular paper on this, if you print a full color page, it could easily cost you $2.50 worth of ink on a standard 8.5x11. So that's just a little bit, that's very, very close to a half of a square foot. So you're dealing with about $5 a square foot on that. If you're going to go, if you're a photographer, then you're going to want to use special paper, and you might use a special printer. Hopefully you can get your costs down less than that. You know, something as simple as going for a printer that has individual ink colors that you can charge, and not one that has all 3 colors. You can get your cost for printing down, but it's going to come down to a square foot. So then you simply have to go, what is the size of that package, how many square feet is, what's the paper cost for me, and what is my printing charge, and that's going to be sort of a price too. Now I'd have to go back to my sales page and say, what do I have here? So printing package number 1 is $200, $500, and $1,000. This $1,000 is, 16x20, a couple 11x14s, a bunch of 5x7s, and whatnot. It's a pretty substantial one. So this $200, it might cost me $25 for that printing package. This one might cost me $50, and this one might cost me $100 for that printing package. Photoshop per hour is another thing that is going to have 0 cost of materials, because that's simply my time. Someone has says, hey, can you fix this print? Can you retouch it? Can you take off that tattoo that I got when I was younger, or something of that nature. So it's simply my time. I scan it in, and there's no material cost at all. Wedding package is going to be a combination of each. It's going to be a certain amount of timing and a certain amount of prints. So I have to calculate what my cost per prints is and then put in those values. So let's go back to my sales page, and I've got 1,500, 3,000, 5,000, and 12,000. So my cost of materials, this could easily be very, very similar to package number 1. So I'm going to say maybe a little bit more than that. I'm going to say about 50 bucks. This could be easily $100. This could be $200. And this is going to be a fairly substantial one, but lots of framing and other things in it too. So let's say that it's $400 of raw materials. Think of it as a cookie recipe. If you're making cookies, you have to stand in the kitchen, and it takes you time to make those cookies. But what else does it cost you? Well, you would have to go through and say, how much chocolate chips am I using per recipe? What's the price of chocolate chips? How much salt am I using? How much flour? How much this? How much that? And you can go through, and you can, using a spreadsheet, you can break it down into a cost per batch of cookies. And if you get 3 dozen cookies per batch, then you simply say your cost per batch. I can break it down to how much does it cost me per cookie on those material costs. That becomes really easy. Keeping in mind, some things will have a cost of goods, some things will not. These things are my time and my time only. So if it doesn't cost me any money to do it, then it doesn't go here at all. If you're a service industry, if you're a lawyer or an accountant, you might have nothing that is a cost of materials. You have to ask yourself, what is the deliverable? What do I get? What do I give to my client? We had someone go through the program a number of years ago, and she wrote training manuals for the airline in their service industry. And she would work 6 months at one contract. And at the very end, and it might be worth, I don't know, $120 for one contract. And at the very end, they got their training manual, they got one hard copy print, and the copy of the file on a CD-ROM or on a memory stick. So then really her deliverables are 5 cents a page, or whatever it cost her to print that manual, however many pages it was, and what's the cost of a memory stick. That was it. So she would have a $120,000 contract, and her material costs would be $5. So and that's just the way it is. Some things will have a material cost and some things won't. Very little for you to do on this is just fill in these things. You'll notice then that what happens is it tells you this is what my material costs as a percentage of my sales. So my framing is 50%. I knew that. I buy it at $1 and I mark it up to $2. Whatever it is, I simply double it. This is my material costs. And here you get to check how is it like in your industry. In dealing with your industry, you've probably went to the Revenue Canada, not Revenue Canada, to the Statistics Canada site, and you've checked out what the norms for your specific industry are, and you get to compare what your things are compared to what the industry norms are. As an example, in the restaurant industry, a very, very typical food costs is about a third. So if I'm spending $10 at a restaurant for a meal, I know that the food costs is about $3. That would be norm. Now it might be different for high-end restaurants versus fast food restaurants, but that would be very, very normal for that particular industry. Jewelry industry might have markups of 200 and 300% for their things, so their material costs might be considerably lower compared to what they're selling it for. Computers, there was a time that there was very little markup on computers. they would buy it for $80 and sell it for 85. So there was less than 5% markup on, well, that's actually more, but there would be less than 5% markup on computers simply because that's just the way the industry was at that time. So whatever yours is, and if you don't have anything that has a material cost, then you can just leave this page blank. That's it for this, and I'll see you at the next tab.